Right, start again. Um, I just literally did about sort of 30 seconds of an original attempt, but I decided to scrap that because in my infinite wisdom, I started off with a rendition of the old Barry Barry Norman film review music, and it's a bit embarrassing. The embarrassment got the better of me, so. And it was supposed to be like a clue as to the content of this video, but yeah, I don't know why. I've got to realise that the vast majority of my ideas um, should never make it even close to being put on film. You know, but it seemed like a good idea at the time, and somehow it got through the filter. Anyway, yeah, this is more films that I've been watching recently. Only seven. I'm only going to talk about six. Yeah, pretty much. Only going to talk about six because the last one is available to watch on YouTube at any time, and I watched it last week. It's brilliant. It's just a half an hour short film, and so I won't say too much about that because you can experience it for yourself. I'll just say it's really good, but I'll leave that to the end. Um, the rest are all just generally films that I've been watching, which is obviously otherwise that is New Dragon Gate Inn, bit of old chop socky action, just for the background. Just like I said, for a bit of interest, break up the monotony of the background. Um, this is I'm only going to talk about six films, so it shouldn't take too long. Again, one of these was it one? Yeah, only one of these. No, two, two, two of these were on the Horror Channel. Which has been it's been quite fruitful. No, it's not the right word. Fruitful. It's been quite well, maybe it is the right word, fruitful. But for films that I've just taken a punt on, sat down and watched, not necessarily been the best films in the world, but been films that I've actually sat through. Just in most of this is sort of in the hope of finding. I hate the term hidden gem. It's a bit too sort of twee. Just annoys me. But I can't think of any other better term for it. I suppose there is. I try, like I think I said before. I try to sound. Sometimes I try to say like sleeper hit. But that just makes me sound as much of a tit as if I say hidden gem, or more of a tit if anything. Because what have I got a problem with saying hidden gem? I don't know, but it's probably because everyone says it. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Yeah. Anyway, generally, they're good sources for finding things like that, and movie mix, and there's another channel. What is it called? They're all on free view. So they're all free to view for people in the UK. If you're outside the UK, sorry, but this doesn't concern you. But anyway, but generally, like the Horror Channel, movie mix, and movies for men. If you're a woman, you're not allowed. The name's not down. You're not coming in. But if you're a man and like watching man films, then you can watch movies for men. But yeah, they're actually not so much movies for men. That hasn't been quite so much of a quite so good. Not I'm saying that all of these films are good, but they're worth sort of interesting in that quality wise, not so much, but for other reasons anyway. First one was actually on the horror film, and I would have been surprised if it got like a general release in cinemas, but it wears its influences on its sleeve. Like on its sleeve, I suppose. Is that the right term? Yeah. It's called Under the Bed, and it's a horror film. It was on the Horror Channel a couple of weeks ago, and you can pretty much work out from the title. They probably started with a title called Under the Bed, and they took that sort of basic fear, childhood fear that a lot of us had. I had it. I won't deny it. I had it. Childhood fear of what's under the bed. You could say like you could probably come up with a similar concept for the wardrobe. Kids have been scared of what's in the wardrobe at night, or the dark. Kids are scared of the dark. I think I was scared of the dark. Actually, fucking hell, I was making myself sound right worse as a little kid. Actually, for a good few years when I was a little kid, I was sort of scared of the dark, so I used to go to sleep underneath my duvet cover. But then it used to get too hot, and I worked out that if I could put my hand under my pillow, so I was basically sleeping like this with my hands under my pillow, but underneath my duvet as well. I sounded like a proper nutter as a kid, didn't I? But anyway. But then I wake up in the morning, and inevitably I'll find myself out from under the covers, and I come to realise that no, there's nothing wrong with the dark. But anyway, that's for another video. Basically, under the bed, they're taking sort of that basic fear of what's under the bed, and it's a very tangible fear that a lot of people will identify with. And I think having watched Critters, the first Critters film, the little bastards end up under it's sort of like a Gremlins clone, and they're little furry things with teeth. And at one point they go under the bed, and I can remember having watched that. I probably watched it too young, actually. I think it had swearing in it and a lot of violence. And I can remember for a few years, not years, weeks, maybe days, after that, being pretty aware that there's a gap under my bed, and I didn't want to sit on the edge of my bed with my feet hanging over the side because I thought something might bite them. But yeah, under the bed takes that idea, and where's its influence on its sleep? It's definitely got it's got like a Steven Spielberg sort of suburban setting. It tries the old lens flare thing. It's very, very suburban. It's about this kid who obviously has been away from home. He's been sent to live with a mad old aunt, and he comes home, and there's definitely something not right. He was sent away for a reason because he was destructive, and you realise you get to learn why he was sent away. And he comes home, and there's tension. His stepmom's there, and his brother, younger brother, is also a bit disturbed, and you get to realise that there's something in their house that lives under the bed of this the main character, this teenage kid he's grown up, so he's now a teenager, and it feels like one of those sort of suburban horrors, which is basically sort of this thing that like this sort of teen angst that manifests this thing, like Carrie. I think Carrie was like that, wasn't it? It's because they're teenagers. The main characters are all teenagers, and it's supposed to be that sort of turbulent time of your life. It sort of tapped into that horrific, that horror of that, like raging hormones and stuff, and it manifests like that. But it never actually explained what it was all about. I mean, the idea is that there's this thing living under this kid's bed, and he's moved away, but now he's come back. He's realised that his younger brother is experiencing exactly the same thing, and they're both terrified of whatever it is, and it's basically you don't get to see it until quite late on, but you see like glimpses of it that it sort of powers of suggestion and stuff like that. And for the vast majority of the film, it's quite nice actually. I quite enjoyed it to an extent because it wasn't. It gave a lot of time to other things. It was quite unconventional, but even though it had all these quite definite influences, it's quite unconventional because you've got these two child characters, or a teenager and a younger brother, and they're given a lot of time to sit and talk about things, discuss their fears, which you don't really get. A lot of dialogue and a lot of sort of screen time for these two kids, like talking about it, and the film sort of falls down when it comes to the dad, because the dad's just a twat. You maybe think the dad's just a bully. You think he's supposed to be, so basically he lost his rag because of the troubles that he's a teenage son is causing. No, yeah, it's the troubles that he's sort of bringing about, but he just comes across as like a knob, like a bully, and maybe that's down to the guy's acting. The guy's probably not as good enough as an actor as he needed to be, because there's no subtlety or nuance. There's no understanding with this dad. Although you do come to realise that the first encounter that the main character, the teenager, had with this monster, he basically tried to get rid of it by burning his old house down, and I think his mum died in this fire. So maybe maybe you can understand why the dad is a little bit of a twat, but that's distracting, isn't it? Bit of kung fu. I'm watching it myself, but anyway. But yeah, it's an odd film. It's undeniably a straight to video sort of film, but it's about this obviously thing that comes under the bed, and they're obviously, it's very conventional in a lot of senses, apart from the interaction between these two brothers. There's lots of there's like the archetypal spooky door down a suburban corridor, and there's things that go bump in the night, things that move around in the shadows. There's all of that, but then I don't know whether it's quite odd in this, that I like the bits where the two brothers, they decide that they're going to have to sleep in the same room together, but they're also scared of the beds. So there's all these. Their dad keeps coming in and finding them, but they're both asleep on this sideboard, or this chest of drawers, this big long chest of drawers that is in this room, because they're both too scared to go and lie on the bed. And the younger one shows his brother how he's taken to getting into bed. He's basically running and sort of jumping, And there's a point where I think you're meant to question whether or not this thing actually exists, or whether or not it's this teenager who's got sort of like hormonal, like sort of teenage problems, because at one point they encounter this thing. They're in the room at night, and this thing comes out, and this arm comes out from under the bed, and sort of grabs the little one, and the teenager, his older brother, is fighting off this thing, but then obviously making a load of din. The dad comes in, and he finds his older son with his hands around the younger son's throat, and so there's that. But I think the explanations are more conventional. That was just a bit, sort of a slightly unsubtle bit of a misdirection. I'm not too bothered about giving away the plot in this one, because it's, I don't know, it's an odd film, because the tone is quite sort of tense and sort of talky, but then nearer the end there's these explosions of just proper B-movie gore, which comes totally out of nowhere. It's all sort of Steven Spielberg suburban horror, sort of teen angst, and all of a sudden it just turns into there's about a 5-minute explosion of just things being ripped off and stuff like that, and then this weird sort of unexplained ending. None of it is explained. The presence of this monster, maybe I'm meant to come to my own conclusions, but the presence of this monster is never explained. And at the end, the monster comes out from under the bed and goes on the rampage, but it's never explained what it's doing there. And the ending's never explained. It just happens, and you just go, oh, right, okay. But anyway, if it's ever on Horror Channel again, I'll give it a crack. It's it won't win Oscars, put it that way. But yeah, a film not on Horror Channel. This was on Movie Mix. Quality wise, just way above Under the Bed. That was Under the Bed, by the way. I was talking about Under the Bed. A film called The Verdict. Totally, content-wise, totally different. This is based in the real world, or that's actually based in the real world. It's based in suburbs, but this is non-fantastical. There's nothing fantastical about this one. It's basically an old Paul Newman film. Not old. It's early 80s, I think, or late 70s. Say early 80s. Paul Newman. He plays a washed-up lawyer who who gets given out of pity this some work by his, I can't even remember, his ex colleague. Some work gets pushed his way, and it's a malpractice suit it's a hospital malpractice suit, and basically it's the story is about him deciding to, because he's washed up, he's an alcoholic. He's deciding that no, he's had enough, because he goes to visit this woman. She's not dead. She's just sort of she's basically a cabbage in bed. She's comatose, and she's in a coma, and she'll probably never be any better. Her life, that's her life from there on in until she dies. And he decides that he's going to turn his life around, he's going to sort his life out, having seen this woman lying in bed, and the people who put her there are getting away with it. And it's basically about that, and it's very similar to a Matt Damon film, which is also just as, probably not quite as good. Actually, no, they're both pretty good, called The Rainmaker. It's about courtroom process, and it's about big business, or in this case, the church, because it's church hospitals, I think, or a funded hospital funded by the church. I don't know, who bring about their full might down on this lone lawyer and his few sort of helpers, and he's trying to bring about justice. And it's basically it wound me up, just the you imagine there's a certain element of truth in the way that the big business conducts things, and the way they throw money at stuff, and they employ all these high-powered lawyers, just a whole team of them. And you see how their thought process is about discrediting witnesses and stuff, and putting pressure on witnesses. And it's got James Mason as the other lawyer, the lawyer for the church, and it must have been one of his last films, and actually Paul Newman, because they're both getting on by that time. But who else? It's got a good cast. It's got what's her name? Virginia McKenna. You might recognise her. I can't remember what she's been in. She's been in loads of stuff, but you'd recognise her. And what's his name? No, there's loads of people in it. It's one of those films that's got people in it that you know certain names, and you know lots of faces, but you don't know all their names. It's about courtroom process. It's brilliant, and it's about his almost like fight for redemption, because he's washed up, and it's fantastic. It's such a good film. It's called The Verdict. There is a lot more I want to say about that, but I saw it a few weeks ago, and like earlier episodes of this series, the ones I've seen further ago, I tend to forget what I want to talk about. But anyway, so I'll leave that there and just say The Verdict is really good. A lot like The Rainmaker. It's about the courtroom process, and big business, or in this case, the church trying to get away with murder, or not murder, but And at one point, he's got quite near the beginning. He's got himself a star witness, so that's why he takes on the case. But then he gets to realise that the other side have lent on this star witness, and star witness has gone on holiday. So, that's not giving anything away, because that's quite near the beginning. So that's The Verdict. 2 thumbs up. What's next? Warm Bodies. Now, this is one I wanted to watch, but also recommended by NESnate, top lad, NESnate. Warm Bodies. A sort of a bit of a concept zombie film. I like the way zombie films are so popular now that they all tend to write their own rules, and this invents a whole new sort of strain to the zombie mythology. Basically, it's based around the idea that post-zombie apocalypse, that the zombies heal themselves. They either go 2 ways. They can lose all hope and turn into these weird black skeletal things, or they can start to heal themselves, and they start to gain more sort of conscious thought. And it's basically what it's about. And it's got the guy Nicholas Hoult, he was in Bout Boy and in Skins, and he he basically falls in love with this human. He's a zombie, and he falls in love with this human, and it's quite a nice, gentle film. It's not quite as creative or challenging as I imagined it to be, but I did enjoy it. It was, I quite like. I think my preference was of the earlier bits where he basically hear his sort of thought processes, and he's not talking at the moment. He's basically, it shows his life as he trundles around this airport, and like in Dawn of the Dead, when they're drawn to the um, shopping centre. In Warm Bodies, for some reason, in the same way, they don't really understand why they're drawn to the airport. And so basically, they all walk around, and he's got like a best mate. This other zombie. He sits next to this bar, and they grunt at each other. And I like that idea. And you would get to realise that he does have this. He's getting more and more. He's sort of waking up out of this sort of stupor, because he's sort of tapping into certain things that he had in his sort of real in his earlier life and his actual life. He's realised he's collecting things, he's collecting trinkets, and it's all part of the sort of the waking up process. And it basically accelerates when he encounters this girl, and that's another thing actually. Another thing that way it rewrites the mythology is that you inherit, according to the film, you inherit the memories of people whose brains you eat. And once you've eaten their brains, there's no coming back. If you can just bite them, then they turn into zombies. But if you eat their brains, so he eats the brains of this girl's boyfriend. So it helps. He sort of encounters her to begin with, but then he kills her boyfriend on top of that, and then that's it. He's sort of got his hook, line, and sinker in love with this girl, and she gets cornered, and all of her friends are dead, and she's stuck, and he's right there, but he doesn't kill her, and basically he saves her. He takes her to he's got this what's he got? He's got like an old disused aeroplane where he's collected all his trinkets, and he takes her there and leaves her there. And basically, not so much keeps her hostage, but he doesn't want to let her go because he knows where she goes, he'll never see her again, and he tells her that it's not safe. And so yeah, it's sort of gentle. It's got not safe. It's quite funny in places. It's a bit of a have your cake and eat it film. It's it writes its own mythology, which basically makes the endings easier to write. But it's a nice. I did enjoy it, and it's all really cosy. It is definitely. Sorry, you see that? I scratched my nose, and it went all cold. And anyway, weird. What's that about? But yeah, Warm Bodies. It's gentle. It becomes more conventional. It starts out a bit of a unconventional sort of indie take on the zombie genre, but then it becomes a bit more conventional and sort of warm-hearted and. Yeah, a bit of a have your cake and eat it sort of film, but I did enjoy it. I'm not sure I like Nicholas Hoult though as an actor. He's a bit sort of stiff. I don't know. I mean, he wasn't the most sort of fluid little kid when he was in or relaxed little kid. He tends to sort of act like that. He's in a new Jaguar ad, I think, with Tom Thingy. But yeah, Warm Bodies. It's gentle and it's have your cake and eat it. Well, I quite enjoyed it. Shutter Island. I had no idea what Shutter Island was about. It's a Martin Scorsese, which surprises me. Actually, it doesn't really come across as a Scorsese film. Although what does now, I don't know. But undeniably, it's really well made. There's not so much I can say about this really, because it's got the Martin Scorsese hallmarks. It's brilliantly made and everything. But my main gripe about the film is that it's sort of like it's an easy ending. It's a badly written ending. I mean, I can remember writing. It's almost like an ending you write when you can't think of what else to write. I can remember being at school and when I was at primary school, and I won't explain too much about it, but when I was at primary school, I uh, I can remember writing a story and not knowing how to end it, and then and basically writing this ending, which is basically a Get Out. It was an easy ending, and I think my teacher liked the story, but then the sort of story after that I wrote, exactly the same thing happened. Just couldn't remember how to write it, so I used exactly the same ending. Got a load of stick for it, but it's because it was sort of the easy ending. Uh, it's aesthetically looks stunning. It's all sort of like a B movie pastiche. I think that's what they call it. That's what I read. Somebody referred it to a pastiche. It was old, a 50s sort of B movie. Aesthetically, it's got a lot like Outlast, the film. And I've been watching NESnate's a really good playthrough of Outlast. You should watch it. It's really fucking terrifying. Shat my pants more than once. But Shutter Island has got a lot in common with that video game. There's lots of, not so much jump scares, but it's set in the same sort of place, and it's just the ending of Shutter Island. Which went, oh really? Is that it? That's. It gets around all of the loose ends just with one big, quite basic explanation, which I didn't really like. It's basically Leonardo DiCaprio goes to this sort of hospital for the criminally insane on his island, and there's this sort of thunderstorm, and everything's really terrifying, and he's investigating this disappearance of this patient, and also he's got this sort of thing that he also wants to investigate is sort of the death of his wife, because he thinks the person who killed his wife is in this hospital. So he's got a bit of a he's got two reasons for being there, but I mean, it's brilliantly made film, undoubtedly, but I just felt the ending just left me a bit, oh, really? Oh, left me a bit cold, but, watch it and see for yourself. I mean, it's definitely worth, making your own mind up with, you won't be disappointed. You won't feel dirty having watched it, Some films I just feel, I feel like I've let myself down. I think I've mentioned that before, and I won't say. I won't say which films make me feel that way, but anyway. So that was Shutter Island. What's next? The Amazing Spider-Man. This disappointed me, actually. Who made it? I can't even remember who made it. But it was obviously a reboot of the Spider-Man storyline. I do like Andrew Garfield. I liked Andrew Garfield with Emma Stone. But that's probably the strength of the film, was their relationship. I think I didn't like the villain. I don't like Rhys Ifans. I think he was. I do like him as an actor, but I think he was miscast as this genius. He's a bit too sort of. He's more Howard Marks than sort of insane genius lunatic. He's a bit more sort of rock and roll than someone else. But it's just it's basically a reboot of the ideas. It's and it's a shame that I didn't enjoy it more, because I if they took Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone and put them in a different film, or I think it'd be brilliant. Maybe the second film, because there's been a second one since, isn't there? Maybe that's better. But I just thought, I don't know, it was a bit. It didn't pay too much attention to certain things, and the attention was in other places. Certain things needed to be sort of stretched out. Certain things needed to be given less time and stuff like that. But I think the special effects lacked a bit. I mean, I always enjoyed the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, but the first two, not the third one. The first one was shit. But so I'm distracted. People close my windows, but Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man is slightly disappointing, but sort of saved from being really, don't know. No, actually, I mean, I do like Andrew Stone and no, sorry, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. She's like, I thought she was Mila Kunis when I first saw her. Because I never when I first saw a film she's in. I thought, are these the same people? They do look very similar, or do they? But anyway, no, it's slightly disappointing. I don't know what to say about it really, because it's sort of Spider Man, and it had a lot of. There's only so far you can go with sort of the beginning of a Spider Man film, and it was the actual becoming Spider Man was a bit throwaway. It just happened, and then you know it happened sort of instantly, and I don't know. It's slightly disappointing. But if you could take Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone out of that film and put it in maybe the Tobey Maguire films, or just remake it. Anyway, making Spider-Man slightly disappointing, but yeah. Um, the Mist, now probably my favourite film that I've seen recently. The Mist, horror film about a mist, not like the fog, by Frank Darabont, who made Shawshank Redemption. Don't let that put you off. And he was one of the creators of The Walking Dead, and this has got more closer ties to The Walking Dead than Shawshank Redemption. The Mist, basically set in a sort of a very sort of middle class town in the US, small town that gets hit by a big storm, and there's weather reports that there's more storm on the way, so the whole load of the town's population all converge on their sort of town centre and sort of the shops to basically panic buy all the stuff they need for when this big storm hits, and the whole film, or the majority of the film, is set within this supermarket, because when most of the main characters, are in the supermarket, this mist rolls in, and it takes them a while to realise that there's not things in this mist aren't to be trifled with. It's got more than just Frank Darabont's connection with The Walking Dead, because it's got the guy who played Dale in it, and the woman who played what's her name? She's still in it. She's not dead yet. Woman with the grey hair. I'll watch it. She went a bit rogue, and she turned into like this sort of sniper and saved them from the cannibals. Oh, it's so annoying. Just things pop out my head. But anyway, she's in it, and who else is in it? It's got at least 3 people from The Walking Dead, like actors who are in it or still in it, or have been in it. So there's certain those connections, and it's got a lot, to begin with, because there's this sort of like they're not sure what's in this mist. You just get as the mist rolls in, this man runs out of the mist and basically makes it into the supermarket. For he's been in the mist, and he's got a bloody nose, and he's obviously encountered something in there, and it's basically just his say so until something else happens, because they close the doors, nobody goes out. But then there's something wrong with the generator, so it's all sort of bunged up with all this stuff. So somebody has to go out into the mist to unblock the exhaust pipe or things like that, because it's all the fumes that's being sort of pushed back into the sort of storeroom of this supermarket. And then so these 5 characters all go into the storeroom and open up the sort of the gate, and then they encounter something that basically pulls this young store kid out, in sort of store worker, out into the mist, and then they leave. Then sort of they're able to sort of cut off one of its tentacles, because it's got tentacles, and pull the gate down and leave him out there. But then they still have something to convince. They have to convince the people still in the supermarket that there is actually something out there. It's not just a mist, and they're not making it up. And a vast majority of the film is about sort of the paranoia and the sort of shifting allegiances and the factions that break, that split, and create. And everyone's got their own agendas. There's always these sort of bigger characters. Some people know things. Some people don't. Other people don't know things. But some people think they know things. There's the sort of the maverick character, which is the loony religious local nutter, and she becomes more and more influential as people realise that this isn't just sort of their imagination. These things are real. So she becomes more and more influential, and she becomes pushed to the forefront. And so then, at that point, as she becomes more influential, there's now a threat from outside and there's a threat within. And I love those sort of split allegiances, sort of factions breaking off, and there's a lot of The Walking Dead in that. I just really, really liked it. It's quite talky. There's not so much action. There's little pockets of action and tension. No, actually, there's more than that. At one point they have to go out into the mist to get some medicine from a nearby pharmacist, and there's lots of bits like that. But there is a lot of dialogue and character interaction. But if you do, I loved it. But if you do watch it, watch out for the ending. The ending is one of the most heartbreaking endings I've seen in a long time. It's just, it's just, oh really. It's just horrific. The endings, maybe I've given too much away, but no, actually, no, I haven't. No. Watch it for yourself. I haven't given too much away, but just be wary. Right, it's nowhere near as long as the last ones. I'm going to just finally, seventh. This is the film I was mentioning that is actually available to watch on YouTube, and everyone should go and watch it right now. I'm going to put a link to trailers for all of these in the description box below. And often these films are available to watch there and then on YouTube, and you go and watch them. And if they are available, I'll put links to them. But this one is definitely available on YouTube. It's a crowd-funded short film, basically homage to the 80s and all like popular culture from the 80s. It's brilliantly made, hilarious, funny, violent. Called Kung Fury. I bet a load of you have probably already watched it and loved it. It's brilliant. Crowd-funded, made out of Sweden, and it's just fantastic. Just go and watch it. I won't say too much about it because I don't want to talk too much longer anyway. But if I hadn't spoken so long for the earlier films, maybe I'll say a bit more. But just go and watch it. Kung Fury. It's got David Hasselhoff in it, and references to old 80s toys and old 80s video games and 80s music, and it's brilliantly tongue-in-cheek and very sort of self-aware. So just go and watch it. It's bloody amazing. So thanks for watching. Again, I think it's my 5th edition of these. I want to stick with this. I don't often stick with series that I start. I really want to stick with this one, and because it gives me something other than pickups videos to do. So, which is always a bonus. So yeah, I'm gonna let you go. It's already 38 minutes, so it's not quite as long as the last two, but not by much. But anyway, I'll let you go. Thanks for watching and keeping. I've got a pickups video coming up, by the way. All right, should I do that now? Probably not. Don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.